So in this segment, we're going to get into a multi-layered bag. As head of the Players Union, the director himself, Andre Iguodala, has sat down with Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart. And Andre himself has been making his rounds throughout multiple players' podcasts. And it's not because he's helping them do numbers. The NBA players throughout the league are beginning to wake up of how the owners finessed them in this new CBA. And it's affecting every team, including the Knicks, with Jalen Brunson having possibly an $80 million a year contract that's coming up. Mikal Bridges' new contract kicking in, thus making it harder to re-sign guys like Mitchell Robinson, Deuce McBride, Big Mo, Landry Shamet, etc. But again, this is going to be a multi-layer segment, as in part 2, we'll hear from Carmelo Anthony as he acknowledges the amount of equity that him and LeBron James came into the league with, so much so that, of course, players' movement took place in their era, and Melo himself is beginning to admit that players of today are paying for that initial backlash from the owners. The NBA historically has never liked players having control of their careers. You could look at Spencer Haywood back in the 1970s suing the league, eventually down the line allowing guys like Kobe Bryant and KG to come in from high school. Chris Webber being the first overall pick, opting out his second year and going to another team, signing a huge contract. Jim Jackson, also in the early 90s, holding out and eventually still getting his way down there in Dallas. Kevin Garnett, signing that large contract after his third season, even became the main catalyst of the players having that 1999 lockout with the owners. They were not comfortable of guys making a lot of money real young. And of course, fast forward, LeBron James, even though he was an unrestricted free agent, making his moves to go down there in Miami. You've seen owners in 2017 kind of structure deals a certain way where guys had to give up money if they wanted to change teams. So historically, every time any of those players were trying to make movements, the owners eventually came to an agreement where you've seen some limitations. After the Chris Webber, Jim Jackson, and Kevin Garnett situation, we've seen them introduce the rookie scale contract. The NBA players in the 1980s spent over 7 years suing the league just to have a version of free agency where teams were still rewarded. If a player left, they were compensated with a draft pick. That was the first version of free agency until it became unrestricted in the early 90s. So it's politics as usual. The Knicks right now are in a situation where they could be real competitive, but eventually we'll see going into the offseason, because of the way the league is structured, they are going to have to make certain sacrifices. Again, Andre Iguodala making multiple appearances on other players' podcasts are not to get the numbers up. This is somewhat of a silent protest by the players, acknowledging to the owners that they're not happy about their current deal. So first we'll start off with the Villanova brothers talking to Andre Iguodala, then we'll head over to Melo as he begins to realize the repercussions of him and LeBron's sins with all that player movement in the mid-2010s.
And so we got to keep updating the numbers every free agency or really trade cycle, because it seems like the new free agency is the trade deadline. You know, like, are you going to pay me for my value, or do I have to get traded into a slot that can pay me? You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that feels like that's the new age. But there's two sides of it. You know, if you go back, you can put an imaginary second apron in every system of the salary cap going back to the 80s, right? Like there's been a salary cap every NBA season. Mm-hmm. You know, so this similar system has been in place in terms of a salary cap. And so you can draw an imaginary line and say what the second apron is. It's above whatever, 40%, whatever it is. Historically, only 3 teams get there anyway. And so the second apron was pretty much small market having issues with the bigger market teams and wanting to have that competitive balance. Like, Indiana has never been above any apron.
Now that right there, I believe, is an excuse that the owners have propagated through the media to have fans somewhat buy into it. But at the end of the day, on the ownership level, they do have a somewhat socialism system set up in which small market teams, or just teams who can't innovate and just find brand new revenues for themselves, they do get to collect money from the luxury tax of the more successful teams. And also 9 out of 10 times, those very same teams are also not doing well on the court, and they get rewarded for all that losing by getting top level talent coming in from the draft. And at the same time, those top players are coming in making a limited salary with the rookie scale contract. We've seen this type of socialism on the billionaire level before. Look at the many firms at Wall Street go down after the recession and ask the government for a bailout. And more recently, the tech companies are trying to tie all the costs of this AI to the government. So in case things go wrong, they get that same bailout. Again, socialism on that billionaire level, it's a real thing.
You know, like you can look at that. Charlotte, never going above the first apron.
New Orleans?
New Orleans,
Not going above.
never going above. New Orleans is sharing a cafeteria. It's like, you know, like you can just go look and see. And so it was really more of small owners upset at, and it's highlighted on the Warriors run because the Warriors drafted really well. Historically, the Warriors have never been that good, you know, but they are a big market. And so that played a part in it too. Like, how do you get KD? Well, they drafted well with Harrison. But with the second apron, all of the tiered players' average salaries are actually up. So if you say that, is it a bad thing? Minimums are up. The middle class is actually up. The maximum contracts are up a little bit. The only thing that's down is the tier between max and mid-levels.
And that tier between max and mid-level, Andre's talking about the super max players, guys like Luka, LeBron, SGA. The level below that is actually a big part of the league. That super max nowadays is a 1% level. But we've seen guys like Julius Randle, Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler having that holdout in Miami. The NBA co-star today is struggling to get his value. Emmanuel quickly, right before this new CBA kicked in, signed his deal for about $35 million plus. But Julius Randle, after getting traded from the Knicks, got fucked over in his deal, as NBA owners put him in that slot where they're not necessarily trying to pay him his real value, which is probably earning close to where Karl-Anthony Towns is earning right now. Brandon Ingram went through the same struggles. Pat Riley was trying to run that same game on Jimmy Butler down in Miami. So the NBA has always had more players around that tier versus the top guys. That's only a 1%er position. Matter of fact, today's NBA is only really set up for maybe about 5 to 6 guys to actually make a supermax. As in the previous deal, when we seen guys like Carmelo Anthony and LeBron was kind of in their primes, a number of players were making the same amount of money as them being the top guy of the team. That's no longer the case today.
The only thing that's down is the tier between max and mid-level. So like guys who make like 25, 30 million, the percentage of contracts is down a little bit. And then overall, the average salary of NBA players are actually up. Well, revenues are up,
yeah.
But there's both sides. You can argue for the second apron. It's just players are taking sacrifices, whether it's they don't have stability, so they can trade it more. Like Dennis Schroeder, and the way he's getting traded is insane, right? Or Anthony Davis, kind of the way he's been traded has been kind of, insane.
Anthony Davis, Trae Young, Ja Morant, those guys are in that pool I was referring to alongside Julius Randle. Teams are not going to be willing to give them $44 to $50 million a year. They will be down to pay guys like Luka, SGA, that type of money, $80 million plus. But look at the gap. The B-level stars that should be making anywhere from 60 to 45 mil, owners are very hesitant to even give up that kind of money. And this is the reality that players are starting to wake up to. Once again, guys who get that Supermax deal are 1%ers. And by the time this deal is midway through, those same guys could be earning $95 to $100 million a year.
Or if a player can't get his value with another team, he can get stuck, like the Jonathan Kuminga thing, and that's the Warriors. But why couldn't he have, his potential is what it is. Like if he was at another franchise, would he have been more embraced and given a higher number to ultimately be who he thinks he is and who another team thinks he is?
Jonathan Kuminga, Cam Thomas. That's why fans are seeing guys for the first time who are clearly talented and almost being ignored. In the NFL, we've seen this before. When that quarterback out of Baltimore, Lamar Jackson, the season right before he won MVP, he asked to be traded and no other NFL team was interested. We're seeing that same energy be shifted now into the NBA. Low-key, the NBA owners have shifted this league to sort of be like the NFL. For the first time, the fans are seeing guys who have value like Anthony Davis, even though he's injured, and Trae Young, Ja Morant, have the same no interest in the open market as Lamar Jackson. And that's not a coincidence. The shit is looking like the same collusion from the owners, allegedly. I'm gonna just leave it at that.
And so there's so many different things to speak on the second apron, and I think it's important for us to like get the facts.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I will say, because I know y'all have a strong platform and a lot of players are hearing from it, is that when you go into CBA negotiations, and there's a CBA negotiation going on with the W right now. I don't know much. I don't know anything about it. So only what we've been reading. But the big thing with negotiations is understanding you have to be involved. And everyone talks about the millionaires versus the billionaires. They can wait longer than we can. And so you never want to work stoppage because it's going to affect the game, which affects everybody.
Now that right there, Andre, is the problem. That is the players' main leverage. The owners cannot make all that money without their participation. And just the NBA team's evaluations going up, $10 billion in order to buy a team. We're hearing crazy expansion fees for brand new franchises. These new owners that are coming in do not want to spend all that money using a lot of private equity and Saudi funds low key and have their superstar players just make a decision, hey, I don't want to be here anymore, trade me, and just have all that power. The days of player movement is long gone, and they made sure to phase this out because it's hard to convince someone to spend all that money when they walk in the building. The main superstar that is the draw could just walk away at any moment. That's why I stated before, the league is slowly wheeling in that kind of NFL atmosphere where the contracts are no longer fully guaranteed. We're hearing guys today sign for these crazy numbers, but at least 25 to 35% of that contract is not guaranteed. A couple more seasons from now, most NBA fans will wake up and just realize that the league is set up structurally the same way as the NFL. Just look at good old Jimmy Boy down there in Miami. He basically almost had a holdout during the season. We've never seen that from an NBA player before. Strap in, this shit's only the beginning.
Right? And, you know, being African-American men and arguing over millions, it looks a lot different than Caucasian men arguing over billions. It's just society and systematic America. We'll leave it at that. And I want to talk about CJ McCollum. He's been getting a lot of flack for the second apron. And I always ask guys, well, what would you want CJ to do differently? Because we know what lockouts are like. We don't want guys to lose money. We reach out to guys all the time. What guys say, I'm busy. I don't want no extra work. You know, I know what you got going on. So I understand. Like the best player on the team, he ain't got time for certain things. You exempt. Like I don't expect MJ to be at meetings, you know what I'm saying? But when I talk to another guys, like I need you at these meetings. I want to play Call of Duty. I want to go out. I'm a kill. And that's my young boy. I love Mikal. I'm like, Mikal, dog, if you one of the smart players in the league, him too. We need y'all.
Oh, wait for I don't blame you. But you?
But you feel me though, right?
Now that right there is another issue. The players don't actually take their union very serious. See, now they're only reacting, realizing that they got finessed in this last deal. And we could see it play out in real time because this season, compared to last year, every single team has a players rep. And they usually assign that role to guys almost in two-way contracts or guys at the very end of the bench. But this season, I'm seeing a lot more key role players actually be the representative because the word is out. The owners finessed everybody. And they did this with their teams of just lawyers who understand contract language. The 65-game rule is part of that finesse. The rabbit hole does get deep, but we're about to enter a new phase of the NBA that fans have never quite seen before.
You know, I'm on Mikal all the time. Like, Mikal, there's only but so many of us that get it. So it's just like, that's the responsibility. Heavy is the head, right?
And speaking of that, so obviously you got guys like max guys, right? Mm-hmm. Guys are making 60, 70 plus, dollars a year. Do you think at a certain point there's going to be a tipping point of like, okay, we're not going to be paying these guys $85, $90 million a year? Because let's give a spade a spade. A lot of egos at that point. A lot of egos are going to be, at the table. And it's like, am I really going to pay this dude $100 million to play basketball? Mm-hmm. Like, do you think there's going to be like regulation? I guess regulation would be the word.
Cap a max.
Yeah.
Well, here's a question for y'all, because this is sensitive because I know what I feel, but sitting in this chair as the executive director, there's certain things you can't say about players, even if it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I stopped podcasting. You know what I'm saying? So, but the question is, philosophically, I'm asking y'all, define max and how many true maxes are there in the league?
There's like 10 true maxes in the league.
So based on your answer.
How many do you think?
I would say like 15 to 16.
Now, Jalen's answer right here, it should be 15 to 16 true maxes. But when you add on that 65 game rule, it starts to weave out a couple of players. They're not going to make the all NBA selections, thus triggering that supermax. It almost happened to Tyrese Halliburton a couple seasons ago. This year, it's almost happened to Jokic. He has 2 seasons to pass that 65 games so he can get his version of the supermax. But on top of all that, teams really only want to give that kind of money to guys who move the needle. So it's going to be SGA, Anthony Edwards, Luka, Jokic. You have to be on that level to actually earn the true supermax. What they've done now is invent variations of the supermax. So Jalen Brunson's supermax that's coming up is his version of it. But the real true supermax is something that only the top 1% of guys is going to get. And let me add another layer to this. The last phase that kind of weaves out teams from giving 10 to 15 guys a supermax is that second apron. You got to be one hell of a player to be making $80 million plus, and for teams to have that small window in between to put guys around you to pay luxury tax, even up towards 150 million like the Phoenix Suns were doing, but even after a while, they got tired of it and they shipped Kevin Durant away. So there's a lot of excuses on reasons why not to pay you the supermax. The Dallas Mavericks' new ownership was not comfortable giving Luka that money and just moving forward with confidence that they can build a winning product around it while paying luxury tax. And that's fucking Luka. He's a 1% talent in the league. So again, there's layers to it. 65 game rule. The second apron adds pressure in order for them to give out those contracts. This shit gets deep.
I would consider, like, obviously, you're on a playoff team, you're the best on a playoff team.
I like that.
Yeah.
Considering, I'm just saying considering.
But every team has a max
Guy.
or two.
Or 2. So do you think the criteria for max is going to be different?
Well, I would think it's up to us, and coming from us as players is a lot stronger than the league and their fiduciary responsibility to the governors. I would rather us define that than them define it, because that's where the fighting starts. Now, if we can all get in a room, which is very hard, it's easy to get 30 billionaires in a room on the same page on how to make money than 520, first generation millionaires to get in the room and be on the same page, because egos.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. For those of you that are in New York City, you can see the same thing play out with the radio. A lot of the disc jockeys between Power 105 and Hot 97 used to go back and forth with each other. But come to find out, the people who own those stations, they work together.
Right? Like, you were in a bubble.
No,
No, you were in a bubble.
I was hurt.
Oh, damn. Well, you were in a
Yeah, I
bubble.
was in the bubble.
You saw it. Were you in that meeting?
Nope.
Damn, you missed the meeting. You missed the meeting.
Oh,
The meeting was powerful because you got a sense of, like, this is how we work together. Like, come on, we gotta level up. And I applaud us because we did a good job of coming back the next day, and we did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a moment where I was like, oh, this is what they say about crabs in a barrel. Now, we overcame it. We did what we got to do. So I will say that. But it was one point I was just disappointed in us. But if we can define it and then we appropriately provide the wealth for everybody, we're in a good place. But I do know this. It's almost like wrestling, where how you have storytelling and narratives, but you really got like 5 or 6 guys who drive all the narratives. So you got 5 guys that make you want to watch 30 teams.
And now they carefully set up the league to only pay those top 5 guys the real supermax. If you fall between anywhere, I would say top 7 to 15 players, you're going to be fighting to get paid under a different tier system. I.e., look what happened to Julius Randle, and he's a fucking co-star.
If we start thinking about it like that, then it's easier to define what max is or what guys who are the best player in their teams, but they're not playoff teams, or a guy who has big numbers but is not as valuable to winning. That's how you start figuring those things out. So it's all systems. And
But my devil's advocate to that is like there are guys who are on playoff teams, right? Who are a max guy, right? And then like say they have a bad year, then they're not a playoff team. Like it's a very slippery slope when it comes to that. So like you can't. There's not going to be a definition of a max player. It's going to be. It is what it is. Like if someone feels like your worth is that worth, they're going to pay you that.
Now that great point. That's probably my business partner always says this. Your value is what someone is willing to pay you.
Yeah.
Yes, that is true. But these owners have placed different stipulations on that value. Once again, if a team is in the second apron because they're paying someone, let's say like Luka, $80 million a year, and the Lakers miss the playoffs, more than likely they're making calculations. Hey, if a couple guys get injured, we miss the playoffs, and we're paying $80 to $150 million in luxury tax, will it be worth it? Could we trust this guy in a 4-year stretch to get us where we need to go? Today, owners actually have to calculate the lowest level that they can get with this player being on that supermax contract, because the penalties are really severe. The Phoenix Suns, when Kevin Durant was there, they were set up to be an even worse team as years would go by and pay into the luxury tax like crazy. 150 mil, then it'll become 175, then it'll become 210, and you can't even make the play-in. So not only there's pressure from the superstar player to perform, but also that NBA front office. Do they have the personnel to make sure that they're revamping the roster in a way where they're not only going too much into the luxury tax, but they're also keeping this team competitive, because it's almost like a guarantee they have to be in the playoffs. And that right there, I do believe factored into Luka getting traded from Dallas. His supermax contract was on the horizon. Kyrie's extension was also coming up. And I don't think Patrick Dumont had the right people in the building to actually continue formulating a good team who can get deep into the playoffs year in, year out to justify them paying $100 million into the luxury tax. That's the conundrum for a lot of these teams today. If you don't have a visionary when it comes to roster construction like Pat Riley, a Jerry West of his time, if those visionaries are not present and you got a high salary guy like Luka, SGA, Jokic on your team, you could be in trouble. That's why we've seen the Buss family sell the Lakers. Current day, they are not in position to actually maintain this franchise and the cost level it takes to keep that Laker team competitive. That is the reality.
And that's just the capitalistic mindset that we're supposed to have anyway. But in terms of like the system and how it all works for the greater good of the game, now I'm asking that question as a rebuttal. For the greater good of the game, does that work? You know,
is our game growing right now? It's
I think so.
So I think
so.
I would say our game is growing because globally. When it grows globally, it's like then there's more viewership, then there's more money. The revenue share gets more and more, and then there's more money in the players' pockets. There's more money in the owners' pockets. But
I'm afraid that we're trying to grow it at our detriment.
And I would somewhat agree, because the NBA right now is actually set up for teams, especially these new billionaire owners spending all that money buying up these teams, to focus more on the money side versus winning. When you're talking about paying $150 million a year in luxury tax on top of all the salaries you're already paying, and the rules are structured in so you can't even get better from season to season. Even signing guys who are already on your team, you have to pay the luxury tax difference. Great example is Grayson Allen. When he was on the Phoenix Suns the same time as Kevin Durant, they signed him for about a $30 million a year contract, but eventually it cost him $75 million when you factor in the luxury tax. So when you're looking at situations like that, a lot more owners and NBA front offices are really going to be focused on the dollar value versus winning.
Meaning, y'all are traveling out of this world. I sit in front of my TV and it's Andre Miller's fault. Because whenever someone travels on the court, he would yell, travel. And I have this habit. I'll just be sitting watching the game and I'll be like, travel. And I'll just yell it. I'll be at games. I'll be like, travel. And I'll be like, oh shit, my bad. I can't. How are we traveling like this? Y'all traveling.
They don't call it.
You pick up your pivot foot, then this crab dribble thing. I can crab dribble and get like 6 steps in. Right? And so, but it's to grow the game, right? For more freedom. Or else, why would you call it?
That's not growing the game.
But it is to them.
Hey, you hear, Andre? It is to them because they're making the game easier for a lot of international players who don't have the athleticism to come in. And that would also translate into streaming because if the game has more global appeal, it works better on streaming. These tech companies are not exactly in love with just giving the NBA more and more money every single time the sports right deals come up. Amazon, Apple, Google, they have their hands in so many different pots when it comes to entertainment that the NBA, as well as the other sports leagues, don't really necessarily have the leverage to keep on inflating their television rights year after year. The money coming from the media side of the game is not guaranteed into the future. So that's why we're seeing other additional pivots like all the gambling ads and just the partnerships with casinos. Teams also are venturing out into multiple complex real estate portfolios around the stadiums to create additional revenue sources, i.e. the Golden State Warriors and also soon to be Dallas Mavericks.
Or else, why would you call it?
That's not growing the game.
But it is to them.
It's not.
To them it is, though.
To who?
Whoever's allowing it, which I'm just going to blame, I'm spade to spade. I'm blaming the league.
It's not because there's no other league.
Yeah, I'm like, what? Why we, come on.
If you're going to say that's growing the game, but like no other league is refereeing the way, like calling that stuff the way we're calling it.
But the NFL has their version of it, which is
we're not.
You better not touch the quarterback. You understand what I'm saying? Because it's like that's the strongest asset to NFL. It's hard to find a top-tier quarterback. Like, that's the most important position. If you don't have a quarterback, you cannot win.
So then when some people do a certain move and they don't call travel, right, but majority of the league doesn't move and it's called travel, why is it called that way?
I have no idea.
There's definitely a lot of changes happening to the league all at once, and it's affecting it, especially structurally. But Carmelo Anthony right here not only acknowledges it, but speaks on a lot of the cultural cachet that led him as well as his peers such as LeBron and the backlash it has now caused from the NBA owners where they're seeing the new generation of players actually lose their leverage year over year. Teams are moving off of guys who've made multiple All-NBA appearances and still have value throughout the league even before the age of 26. It's almost as if the guys from that player movement era are now realizing the repercussions are going to be reflected on today's players.
And it was hard to reach back and talk to another player or young player because we didn't have that. Mm-hmm. Nobody told us how to do this shit. We came in and ruffled the feathers and like kicked the door down.
Yeah.
And we made people look at like, oh shit, we gotta watch these motherfuckers right here.
And Melo's referring to coaches like Larry Brown, George Karl. They already didn't like the dynamic Allen Iverson was having in Philly, just holding all that power. By the time Carmelo Anthony and LeBron James came into the league, that's when for the first time, NBA franchise stars had more cultural cachet with their organization than their head coach. Every other rookie since that draft class has instantly been given the keys to the franchise. Let's keep that in mind. Carmelo Anthony and LeBron, just a few years before they came into the NBA, Kobe Bryant was not given the same leeway. That's how much the league had shifted. LeBron James just had so much media hype, and Carmelo Anthony winning the national championship as a freshman, they just had so much cultural cachet coming into the league, it was undeniable.
We came in and ruffled the feathers and like kicked the door down.
Yeah.
And we made people look at like, oh shit, we gotta watch these motherfuckers right here. Everybody was scrambling when we came in the league. Mm-hmm. And we had to really make our mark. It was your team. It was you and your team. That's it. So it's easy to become a narrative, right? When it's just you, your team. Mm-hmm. Because I got to do the bulk of what I'm known for. So I'm not a I told you so type of guy. You know what I mean? But because you go through situations, the way that the situations is handled will never change. Mm-hmm. So you just know it's happening. It's happened before me, it happened to me, and it's gonna continue happening. That's just the nature of the beast.
They ain't showing no love.
So when you look at
this shit,
and it's even more quicker now. It's even more ferocious now because they don't have the patience no more.
Yeah.
Because that money make
rolling.
you have less patience to deal with shit.
Yeah.
If you ain't ready to go right away as a young player, you on a hot seat.
On
to the
trade,
next.
If you ain't producing,
yeah.
it ain't like you signed a 4-year deal and you know it might take you a year to get your feet wet, and the second year you come
Ain't
back.
no
the
year to
third
get your
year
feet wet.
Nah,
Ain't no
hell
year.
no.
You gotta be ready now.
You gotta be ready to go now. Mm-hmm. So when you start talking about just the Nate, like how the game is going, is really fucked up on how the game is going. So I told a lot of guys, because you're in my position. I only can speak because you're in my position. Right. So I can talk to you because you're in my position. AD, Russ, CP.
Melo right here is acknowledging the cultural shift. These guys used to hold a lot of power and leverage in the league. That's why I said the NBA is slowly moving towards that NFL style, and these are the first examples that we're seeing of it. AD is fighting for that extension, and he used to be one of these players that just has so much leverage that while in the middle of a contract with the Pelicans, he forced that trade to the Lakers. Even being signed to Rich Paul and Clutch Sports is not going to save his ass from just the way the league is moving nowadays.
Told niggas.
Russ holding on though.
Russ holding on
in Sacramento.
Yeah. I'm just saying.
They put my guy on a non-guaranteed.
I'm just saying you see it happen. You see it unfolding.
Yeah, a non-guarantee just for a fucking season. God damn. The way things are set up nowadays, it's not only affecting the top guys, especially with that 65-game rule. It even affects the guys at the very end of the bench, the last 3 roster spots, who normally would be players on guaranteed contracts. Teams nowadays, they're juggling these two-way players. I believe they can only play 55 games until they have to get a guaranteed contract for the rest of the season. And make no mistake about it, the second apron rules is affecting that. Teams are using this as a loophole to stay in that gray area. Matter of fact, the Knicks, during the preseason, they capitalized off of just having multiple players on non-guaranteed contracts to initiate that trade for Karl Anthony Towns. They had players on pending contracts, then they gave them a full contract and traded them.
You just look at what's happening in the landscape and you just see it unfolding. DeMar, Zach LaVine. Like this shit is about to start unfolding for a lot of them.
Yeah. They get the new generation out quick.
Shit,
I mean, the old
Draymond.
generation out quick.
Draymond, you see the shit he said the other day, like, and that's real shit. I'm heart and soul of this shit.
And that's facts.
I'm the heart and soul of the Warriors organization. Y'all ain't about to do that. Like, let's have a little bit more respect in that.
The Warriors are a team that just don't have that much breathing room to keep dipping into that second apron because of Stephen Curry's contract. So if they are going to pay luxury tax, they want to be fully in the mix. Again, them second apron rules is putting a lot of pressure even after you sign your superstar to a supermax deal. It's putting a lot of pressure on teams to either fully commit to be in a winning situation or to bow out and choose to make decisions based off of money. The middle ground is slowly being withered away.
I see both sides.
No.
I can't be
too
upset.
No. Because if I got a plan, if I'm a GM and I got a plan, and this is my plan, I got a solid plan, 4 years plan of me being the GM. Nothing could fuck my plan up. I don't give a fuck win, loss, indifferent. You can't fuck my plan up.
Right.
Now I can make little adjustments you can't fuck my plan up. You can't fuck my overall 4-year plan up. So to make these quick decisions like that, unless it's gonna change my trajectory of where I'm trying to go, I ain't pulling no triggers like that. Mm-hmm. And that's what's happening now. The fans has an influence. The media has an influence. Money has an influence. And what's going on out here? Every year there's a trade. Like as far as like, should he or should he not be traded? Like the best player on every team. Right. It's like why are we going through that?
Once again, that's that second apron putting a lot of pressure on teams, especially when owners see themselves paying into luxury tax every season. The Lakers are going to be in this scenario once they give Luka that 10-year supermax, paying him $70 to $80 million plus every single year, putting them easily into the luxury tax as Rob Pelinka would have to put good talent around him. That's another added pressure to most NBA front offices. If they don't know what the fuck they're doing, it's gonna get exposed real quick. They can't just throw on all the pressure on the superstar to make everything happen. Matter of fact, outside of that Luka example with him just about to be a 10-year vet, even the young players are being affected when they finally get their first Supermax contract, as the time is coming up for guys like Paolo Banchero, even though he's only 2 years into that deal. Once teams start to realize they hit a ceiling with a player, they're going to start to pivot off of them real quick. We could use Ja Morant as another example.
There's a sizable amount of Laker fans that I know that are like ready to get rid of. Like that would have been cool if Bron got traded at the trade deadline.
That's fine. That's
I think
cool.
that's a little crazy.
It's cool. That's crazy.
It's like,
That's
yo,
cool,
you mean to tell me there's no value you can get out in the trade at the trade market that is more valuable as a franchise than LeBron's final years as a pro on your team.
Look, bro, listen. What he's doing, he's living long enough to be a villain. Like,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying? Like, that's what he's doing. Like, he's doing everything at the top, still at the top of the top. Like, still holding his league down. This league don't move without Bron. I don't give a fuck what nobody say.
That's a fact.
It don't move without Bron.
Absolutely.
Until he's gone. Right? So his position in this game is bigger than just these wins and losses throughout the course of the season.
Yeah.
I got to hold. You're not coming against my plan. I got to get my body right. This is my plan, and I got to stick with my plan. So if you're gonna be mad at him leaving LA, fuck are you mad about? You see it writing on the wall, man.
Right. No, I mean,
because of the influence that's out there.
Yeah.
Y'all pushing him out in a sense.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Y'all pushing him out. Y'all never accepted him in LA anyway from the beginning. So he did what he did, being who he is, and did it his way. So the motherfucker should be at this point, year 23, 24.
23.
I should be able to do whatever the fuck I want to do. Like, if I want to go back to Cleveland, I'm going back to Cleveland.
And that era with LeBron James just doing what the fuck he wants to do is structurally over in the NBA. You know, it would have been interesting to see if the Lakers had really put him on the trade block, how many other teams would be interested. Again, half the NBA teams have been sold since 2019. So under new ownership, them spending all those billions of dollars, they are not doing that in order to have a guy come in and dictate their business. Those days are over. You see right there where the NFL style model is slowly starting to creep in.
I mean, speaking of a narrative, a guy like Cam Thomas, I mean, he literally just got waived today.
It's crazy.
Put under a narrative of
crazy.
And it's just like that. The kid got so much talent, bro. Like, all he needs is the right coaching, the right system, the right way to harness his talent. Like, he's a productive player in this league. He's shown it. Waived.
It's crazy.
Why? Because they think he's selfish on an already ass team.
Jonathan Kuminga almost fell victim to the same thing, but he got devalued in the open market by the Golden State Warriors, just making public statements saying that he doesn't play the right way. Even his teammates came to his defense, Stephen Curry and Draymond Green, because they are noticing the power shift.
Because they think he's selfish on an already ass team. Like, huh? Y'all ass, and you found a way to label somebody selfish?
You want him to be
What's he doing?
You want him to be able to fit.
He's sticking out
within the system of being ass.
You want him to stick in with everybody being ass. I hate this shit, bro. Like let's really think about this shit, man.
There's nothing you can say.
Dumb my shit down to be ass.
To fit in,
to be ass.
with the rest of the ass. Like, this shit crazy, man.
Yo, 20-point per game scores don't grow on trees.
You
man.
feel me?
Especially
Like,
when the team is already terrible. Yeah.
Consistently. And I had a conversation about this before with Gil and them. Like, the narrative, like, it's just easy to average a lot of points on a bad team. That's not a real thing.
Right.
You don't see that all the time, bro.
Nah.
Like, there are cases, but you mean to tell me you think that a guy's averaging 28 a game on a so-called bad team, you think it's gonna drop to 12 when he gets on a good team? Like, you can't make me believe that that's not the case. Now, if the numbers support it, you shooting 38, you making a lot of points. Then he's probably a ball hog. He just jacking shots. The numbers are supported.
Right.
But we talking about a dude that's really getting to it. You flirting around 50%.
Yeah.
You the best player on a bad team. You getting all the attention on defense.
Yeah.
That's
And
not
still scoring.
That don't really add up to me. Like,
and at some point,
that's even harder to do.
At some point, coaching got to step in too, where it's like, yo, you are one of the best in your profession in the world at this. Like, shouldn't you be able to make this work for your team? Like,
I am. And I am. That's what he gonna say. I am.
Right.
I am. You know why? Because I just drafted 5 motherfuckers that I want to develop. Right. So I'm not in a rush to get where Cam want to go right now. I'm not in the rush. I am.
And you could tell where the kid mind at right now. He's chasing. He wants to be great, bro.
Yeah.
I'm not.
He ain't out here like he doesn't want to fit in.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I hope the kid get another chance. And
that's a really good narrative right there.
That's crazy.
But a kid like that gonna go overseas and become a fucking legend.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh well, why didn't he wasn't that good? Yes, he was.
Nah, he's good. And most teams, most teams out there know he's good though. Most teams know
Beasley have the same similar
bro.
situation.
It's a lot. It happens a lot. It really does. It happens a lot.
Like Melo just stated, most teams know that he's good, and he recently hit the restricted free agency market this past offseason. He wasn't asking for a ton of money, but yet the interest was low. Once again, that NFL culture is slowly creeping into the NBA. That's the only league where we see talented guys not necessarily get picked up by any team. Lamar Jackson, in the same season that he won the MVP, asked for a trade and didn't draw any interest from a single team. That shit is crazy. But DeMarcus Cousins is also speaking as a player where his team moved off of him real fast. He's really one of these guys that got the negative effects of the player movement. It just hit him the wrong way, even though he did hold all the power when he played for the Sacramento Kings. They notify him during the All-Star game presser that he was traded from the team. So that very same treatment that he received is slowly becoming the norm in today's league, even for the productive guys.
It's a lot of talent that gets overlooked in this league based off narratives. And the narratives may not even be necessarily close to the truth. Now some of them, hey.
Cam issue, the only issue that he has right now is he should have signed that 4-year deal.
He should have.
That's the only issue.
That may be true, but the NBA owners historically have always had issues with guys not necessarily re-signing with their same teams when their first real deal contracts come up. And it's built in. A prime example is Chris Webber opting out of his second year after being the first overall pick, going to the Washington Wizards. We've seen the NBA implement rules after that. Same thing for Julius Randle being the 7th overall pick. After he walked away as a free agent in his 4th year, he was somewhat punished on how much money he could sign for. Again, this shit has always been baked into the cake. Organizations do not want young talent walking away for nothing. And Cam Thomas's pushback is a threat to that. So just him having no interest in the open market didn't even make any sense. He wasn't asking for a ton of money.
He should have took that 4-year deal.
Absolutely.
You get what I'm saying? And this is a thin line between betting on yourself and being
crapping out
and being smart though.
Right.
And you can still be smart and bet on yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, don't just bet all the way on yourself like that.
Man, some team is gonna pick him
somebody else, another player who dealt with that. Dennis Schroeder. Right?
Yeah.
Another player. And again, there's nothing wrong with betting on yourself, but be smart about betting on yourself too.
That's another great example, Dennis Schroeder. He's been regulated to just having all these 1-year contracts, even though teams use him as a marquee role player. I don't want to say this for certain, but we do see NBA organizations somewhat move a type of way with two kinds of players. Guys who refuse to sign their first true deal after their rookie extensions are up, and also players who have been bought out of a max contract. They regulate these guys to minimum deals afterwards. I believe Derrick Rose is the only player who went from a max and eventually got a mid-level contract from the New York Knicks. I don't want to say it's collusion, but damn, you start to see where that NFL style of that NFL culture is slowly creeping into the NBA. But it's always been there, just very subtle.
So Cam, that's another thing. They saying the same thing. Brooklyn, Cam, you should have took this 4-year deal.
Right.
You ain't take the deal, so you're not part of our plan anymore.
Right.
And that's what he's dealing with.
And
And
worse
also,
than
we
that,
can't have two of you niggas over here. We can't have you and MPJ over here. You know what I'm saying?
Shit, but why can't they make that work?
that's
why not put
I'm
some
saying
real
this at the
talent?
beginning of the year.
I'm saying,
Why can't you put talent
we
around
think
those
like,
people?
we think like that.
Yeah.
Fuck that. We about to get to it.
Right.
They not thinking that.
I mean, what more do you?
And we gonna have to pay this nigga?
But here's
They're not thinking that because of the dollar amount and just the plans that they have going forward for all them damn draft picks that the Brooklyn Nets had made. But it is what it is. There's a lot of repercussions from the player movement. We've seen Kevin Durant sign an extension with Brooklyn, ask for a trade. Melo forcing his way out of Denver. LeBron didn't really do anything to contribute to this. He really exercised his right as an unrestricted free agent. But the perception is that he's just as guilty as guys like Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant, who are still in contracts, but yet build out on their teams. These issues are definitely multi-layered, and that's what really makes this whole Giannis to New York situation even more complicated. Not only their second apron rules that are going to be in effect, Jalen Brunson's pending upcoming contract, but you also got to notice that Giannis comes from that same era where guys came up in the league at a time where they just had so much leverage with the player movement. The real question is, do the Knicks really want someone like that on the team while he's aging and also has a pending Supermax extension? But you guys definitely check out the links in the description below, the NBA True Story playlist, and also the bonus videos with the hardwood nuances where we go over a lot of the on-court dynamics that's playing out throughout the season. Definitely hit up that playlist. You get a nice preview of all the videos, and you can further check that out on PanKnick.com or hit up Patreon. And until next time, you fellas stay safe. Peace.